Ready? Let's begin by cultivating our motivation. And really have a sense of how this life is like a dream. It's here now, but at any moment, totally unexpectedly, it could cease. And even though our life seems so solid and real, it's constantly changing. Each moment is arising and disintegrating. So that all the things that we experience become like last night's dream. They were there at one time, but they're gone. And so seeing how our actions condition our experiences, and how constructive actions bring happiness, destructive actions bring suffering, then rather than be attached to all the momentary events in our life, or get angry about the momentary events in our life, thus creating destructive karma, let's make our minds spacious so that we can be aware of impermanence and without grasping with attachment or with anger, let us dedicate our lives to cultivating kindness and thereby release the self-centered thought so that we can make a positive contribution to society, so that we can progress along the path to enlightenment for the benefit of each and every living being. So there may be some people listening in this evening who are not usually on Thursday nights because this event is part of the Interfaith Alliance. Is that what it's called? An interfaith cooperation program that's happening this week between many religious traditions on the topic of peace. And so this talk was included in that. So what we're doing here is I'm teaching from a Tibetan text that's called Mind Training Like Rays of the Sun. And this is just the third talk from the text. I've been reading it and commenting on it. So I think people who are new will be able to catch on pretty easily. That shouldn't be a problem. The text deals very much with how to transform difficulties into the path to enlightenment and how to counteract the self-centered thought that is always saying me, I, my, mine. Okay, our constant refrain of me, I, my, and mine. You know that refrain? Yeah? I want this. I don't like that. Gimme. You know, they'd say the terrible twos, little kids at the terrible twos. I don't think it ends on your third birthday, you know? And we're adults, and we act just like the kids, except we're much more polite about it and we mask it. But the mind state's still the same, isn't it? Yeah? My happiness is most important. I want to get what I want to get when I want it, which is usually right now. And the universe should correspond to what I want. Give me what I want. I'm entitled to everything. Yeah, so that thought with which we live so much of our day, and then of course the universe doesn't cooperate, so we get really mad. Yeah, I'm entitled to have everything be the way I want it to be. Why am I entitled? Because I am. And it doesn't matter whether other people's needs and wants and concerns are different than mine. Mine are most important. Okay, so you can see how that thought is the root of conflict, isn't it? We're not going to have peace in this world simply by legislation. Legislation is helpful, but we have to change our minds first. Otherwise, we won't even follow the legislation. Okay, so what we have to really see is the real enemy inside of us is this self-centered mind that is always clamoring for what I want, and realize, hey, that mind is actually our enemy. Because we're not very good at telling what our enemies and friends are. Yeah, we're actually pretty dumb when it comes to that, and we're pretty fickle. Even if you think your enemies are external, we change our mind all the time about who our external enemies are. Some years in World War II we were fighting Germany. Now Germany's a really good ally. Same with Japan. Yeah. Even on a personal level, we have enemies, then they become friends. Yeah, friends become enemies. So it really isn't the external enemy that causes us suffering, because they so easily can become friends again. But the real enemy is what's happening, the self-centered mind inside of us. Because that's the mind that creates all the conflict. It's not what other people do that creates the conflict. It's our self-centered mind that says, I don't like what they do. And they should be able to read my mind and know what I want and do it. Right? Right? Yeah, they should be able to, without a doubt. But they should only be able to read my mind insofar as fulfilling what I want them to do. They shouldn't read my mind in terms of knowing all the nasty thoughts that go on in my mind. That's off limit. Okay. But they should give me what I want and know what I want, and I shouldn't have to say anything. Once in a while, thank you, but nothing else. Yeah. And as for what I should do for them, nothing. Why should I? I'm the center of the universe. They should do everything for me. Why should I do something for them? So you can really see how this self-centered mind is just such a mess. It creates so much conflict, so many problems, so much unhappiness inside of ourselves, doesn't it? Yeah. And this self-centered mind, it makes us so ego-sensitive. We're always so concerned with, what do people think of me, and do they like me, and do I fit in? Yeah. We had a program last month at the Abbey, and there were about 15, 16 people in the program. And at the beginning, I asked people what one of their fears about the program was, or the biggest concern was. And everybody's biggest concern all related back to, what are other people in the group going to think about me? Do you remember that? It was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah? And so you can see what's behind that mind that worries about, are they going to like me? Are they going to hate me? Did I say the right thing? Do I look okay? Yeah? What mind is between all of that anxiety that we feel about whether we fit in or not? Is that a mind of benevolence, of kindness? No. That's the mind of self-centeredness, isn't it? Yeah? Worrying about ourselves. And it makes us so unhappy, doesn't it? Yeah? I mean, that's why I had everybody at the beginning of that program talk about it. Because I know that, if we talk about it, we bring it out and it doesn't have so much control over us. But otherwise, boy, it can make us so miserable. Because then every small thing everybody does, oh, what did that mean? Did they really mean that? Why are they talking this way to me? Yeah. And so we just spin and spin and spin around ourselves. We waste so much time. So much time. It's as if we think everybody only thinks about us all the time. That's really silly, isn't it? We don't even realize how self-centered other people are, and that they're too busy thinking about themselves to think about us all the time. But we're thinking about us all the time, so we suppose that they are, and then we're worrying and we're anxious. Oh, such a waste of time, isn't it? Yeah, such a waste of time. If we just went into environments with a happy heart, and okay, here are other people who want to be happy just like me, who don't want to suffer just like me. Now, how can I smile and do something that brings them a little bit of happiness? How can I be friendly? How can I, help them not to be anxious? Yeah, imagine going into a situation with that kind of attitude. Instead of with this, what do they think of me? Maybe if you're in 6th grade, you can worry about that. Because I remember in 6th grade, do you remember in 6th grade? We used to make lists of people. Every Friday, we made a list of who we like and who we didn't like. Yeah? And we rated people, because we had learned about making graphs in class. So we applied what we learned in class to our friendship. And the people that we liked, we put at the top, and people we didn't like at the bottom, and we ranked everybody else in the class. Of course, by the next day it all changed. Yeah, but we took ourselves very seriously. So, okay, so maybe if you're in 6th grade, then every Friday everybody's going to think about where you rank. But I hope we're beyond 6th grade. At least some of us, maybe. I don't know. Did you do that in 6th grade? You didn't do that?
Not like that.
Oh, what did you do?
Had little paper things that had people's names on them. Like they folded out and you could have your best friends' names on them.
Oh yes, those little things that you fill, that you go like this with. Yes, and you put your best friends' names in it. Yeah. Right. But we thought everybody just thought about us, and we thought about them, and that was the most important thing, wasn't it? Yeah. 6th grade history was so boring. We'd much rather gossip about our friends. Okay, let's go on to the book. Let's leave 6th grade behind. But the point is, that our real enemy is our self-centered thought. That's the real enemy. Okay? So whenever you find your mind, your self-centered thought throwing a temper tantrum, then you need to identify it. And that's my self-centered thought. And that's throwing a temper tantrum. Yeah? So all this confusion and pain and anxiety, that's the fault of the self-centered thought. Yeah, so I'm going to disregard it. I'm going to put that one in the doghouse so that I can have a peaceful mind. That's what we need to do. Okay? So whenever you're involved in self-pity, whenever you're involved in, all the numerous dramas we get involved in, to identify that's the problem. Yeah? That self-centered thought, that's the real enemy. Okay, so we're reading the text, And we're on a section that's called the unique features, value, and extraordinary function of the secret instruction. And I had printed out a paper that I thought I had put in this book, but isn't here. Could you go, yeah, it's folded in half. It has some notes. It's printed out on the computer. It has some notes about the 6 preparatory practices and the 5 degenerations and things like that. It should be around my desk. Thanks. Okay, so we'll start reading here. So that others may come to respect and appreciate this oral teaching, let me commend it, pointing out some of its unique features. Okay, so the author, Nankapel, is going to talk about some of the specialities of this text. So what he's quoting now are 2 lines that actually come from the root text of the 7-point thought transformation. So it says, you should understand the significance of this instruction as like a diamond, the sun, and a medicinal tree. This time of the 5 degenerations will then be transformed into the path to the fully awakened state. Okay, so let's start with the first line. You should understand the significance of this instruction as like a diamond, the sun, and a medicinal tree. So his commentary says, there is no need to mention the extent to which a diamond is able to satisfy desire and dispel poverty, for even a fragment of one surpasses all other jewels, retaining the name diamond and averting impoverishment. Similarly, knowing even a small part of this teaching on mind training, which leads to the activation of the awakening mind, or the bodhicitta, means that one retains the name of awakening warrior, a bodhisattva, while at the same time excelling the crowned masters of both the hearers and the solitary realizers, as well as completely dispelling the poverty of cyclic existence. This being so, what need is there to mention what a full comprehension of the whole teaching on mind training would mean in terms of its qualities and values? So what he's saying is that the mind training teachings are like a diamond, because even if you have just a little bit of diamond, yeah, it's still a diamond, isn't it? Even though it's small, it's still a diamond. And even a fragment of a diamond is very, very precious, and it's worth a lot. So in the same way, this teaching on mind training is like a diamond. It's very precious, very worthwhile. And even if you only know a little bit of it, it's still so helpful to the mind. Yeah? And so thank you. That's one of the benefits of it, that even you know just a little bit of the mind training teaching, it's like a diamond and eliminates the poverty of not knowing the teachings in our mind and gives us that richness. Okay? Then the second example is about the sun. And here he says, there is no place or time where darkness directly covers the sun. And there is no darkness anywhere where the sun is shining. I think he means that there's nowhere in the universe where the sun is not shining at some time or another. Similarly, there is no need to mention the extent to which the instructions for training in the awakening mind described below eliminate the darkness of the mind, for by knowing just one part of this teaching, you can eliminate the self-centered attitude induced by the ignorance of misconceiving the self and the darkness of the primary and secondary disturbing emotions. Okay? So what he's saying here is that the sun shines everywhere. There's no way that the darkness can permanently override the sun or completely eliminate the sun. And that just as the sun radiates and eliminates darkness, so too these teachings on the mind training, especially on how to develop the awakening mind, both the altruistic intention and the real wisdom realizing emptiness, that this, these teachings are like the sun because they can eliminate the darkness of ignorance, the darknesses of the self-centered thought. Okay? And then he goes on to the third analogy, that of a medicinal plant. And he says, in the case of a medicinal plant which has the power to cure the 424 diseases, even its parts, such as its roots, fruits, leaves, flowers, and branches, also have such power. Similarly, there is no need to mention how, if you understand the teachings on mind training, they will uproot the chronic disease of the 84,000 disturbing emotions, because understanding but one part of this teaching will serve as the most perfect remedy for these ailments. Okay, so he's talking about some kind of medicinal plant that must have existed, you know, in ancient India, or I don't know, that they thought existed. And any part of this plant had the ability to cure any disease whatsoever. So it was a very precious kind of plant. And again, even if you just had a little bit of it or a little bit from a certain part of the plant, still your illness could be cured. And so in the same way with this mind training teaching, just knowing a little bit of it, just knowing a little bit from here, for there, if you put it into practice, and that's the big if we put it in practice, it can really cure the affliction of the 84,000 disturbing emotions, okay? Because these 84,000 afflictions, or these 84,000 disturbing emotions and negative attitudes, these are the things that really afflict us, yeah? And so these teachings, they're like a diamond, like the sun, like a medicinal tree, in terms of helping cure us from the illness of ignorance, anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, and all the other 83,995 afflictions. Okay? So this is kind of talking about the benefit. Many authors, they start out a text talking about the benefit, because when we understand the benefit of something, then we're eager. You know, it's like if you understand the benefits of going to school, then you go to school because, you know, and even though it's hard and even though you don't like some courses, you do it because you know in the long term it's going to benefit you. So this is the same idea. If we know that this teaching is going to benefit us, then, you know, we'll go through whatever it takes to hear the teachings, contemplate them, put them into practice. Okay? So then he continues, Buddha Shakyamuni descended particularly at a time when the 5 degenerations were at their worst, and beings' thoughts were preoccupied by disturbing emotions and their actions unwholesome, accumulating only negativity. Okay, so I'm just going to read a little bit here about, finish this paragraph, and then I'll go back and tell you what the 5 degenerations are. Okay, so because he describes them in a very general way here, and I'll go through and list them. So he continues, when misfortune falls upon others, they perversely rejoice and are jealous when hearing of others' well-being. So this talks about how corrupt our world is, that when misfortune falls on our enemies, we rejoice, okay? And when other people have well-being, we get jealous, right? It's kind of a degeneration, isn't it? Okay. So we get jealous when hearing of others' well-being, which gives rise to pain in their hearts, in our hearts. True or not true? Jealousy is painful, isn't it? Cyclic existence is filled with those whose actions of body, speech, and mind are employed only in harming others. So at this time, the protectors of the doctrines, the gods and nagas who support right actions, have gone to other worlds to support the doctrine and the 4 classes of Buddha's disciples. Okay, so when, you know, in cyclic existence, the state that we're in of being born under the influence of ignorance and afflictions and tainted karma, then we and other sentient beings in cyclic existence, our actions of body, speech, and mind are very much employed in harming others, and harming ourselves for that matter. Because every time we get angry, we harm others, and we also harm ourselves, don't we? Yeah? Every time we get jealous, we harm others, but the worst harm is to ourselves. So all these things, whenever we let our greed run wild, our greed can make us do actions that harm others, and our greed harms us. Yeah? Witness what's happening on Wall Street right now, and this whole financial crisis caused by greed. Yeah? So greed makes us do things that are unwise. It harms ourselves, it harms others. Okay, and as a result of this, the different protectors of the teachings, then some of them just say, forget it. These are worldly protectors, you know. The Buddhists never give up on us. Yeah, but the worldly protectors sometimes go, these people are too much, you know. I'm going to go somewhere else where the Buddhist doctrine is pure and where you have the 4 assemblies of Buddhist practitioners, so fully ordained monks and nuns, and the lay followers, male and female lay followers. Okay. On the other hand, all hostile human and non-human beings who favor wrong actions increase their activities, creating various calamities, particularly against those who follow the theory and practice of the holy doctrine. So our world is a world of many calamities. There's just a hurricane in, Galveston. Haiti is suffering tremendously from the past few hurricanes. We've had the tsunami, we've had earthquakes, so natural disasters, and then of course terrorism and everything else. So this isn't a thing to get everybody all afraid, but it's just saying, we live in a world where our ignorance, anger, and clinging attachment create the causes for us to experience these various calamities that are either, due to nature or, made by us human beings, like global warming. Okay. It is therefore all the more important that such people implement the teaching explained in this text. Otherwise, they will be unable to continue their practice of the doctrine. Okay, so what this means is if you really want to practice the Buddhist teachings or the Dharma, we need good conditions to practice. But at the same time, we live in a world that's filled with bad conditions. Yeah? Because, what are good conditions? Best condition is you live in a place, this is our dream, isn't it? You live in a place, there's no warfare, there's no hunger, there's no famine, everything's very, very comfortable. Okay? We have our teacher there, we have the teachings, we don't have to do any work, we don't have to pay taxes, we don't have to cook, we don't have to clean up after ourselves, we don't have to answer email. Everything is just perfect. All we have to do is listen to teachings and practice. That's our ideal situation. Okay? What is the reality of our lives? Is it like that? No. Okay, the reality of our lives is not like that. We live with a body that gets old, that gets sick, that dies. We live with people who sometimes are disagreeable. Yeah, we live with noise that we don't like and all sorts of things that go on. So, we have to learn to deal with these situations. Otherwise, at the least, smallest, tiniest thing, we're just going to sit and fall apart and say, I can't practice, and then go back to our same old thing of complaining. Like, oh, I don't have the right conditions to practice. I have to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. Oh, when I'm free of all this, then I can go somewhere. And then I'll practice the Dharma. You know that mind? That mind that says, oh, Dharma's wonderful and I really want to practice. I'm so serious and earnest about practicing, but I just don't have the conditions right now. So why I don't have the conditions, I might as well just enjoy my samsara and go to the beach and go to the pub and go to the mall and, you know, watch the movies. And later when the circumstances change and I'm in this perfect ideal world, then I'll practice the Dharma. Yeah, you know that mind? Yeah? That mind says, oh, I can't practice now. I need different conditions. Well, with that kind of mind, no practice is ever going to get done because we're never going to have our ideal situation. So that is, I think, what's especially powerful about the mind training teachings is that they teach you how to practice in all the less than ideal situations so that you transform these less than ideal situations into the path to enlightenment, so that these situations, instead of becoming hindrances and obstacles, become things which spur you on to enlightenment. Okay? And the only thing you have to do is change your mind. Yeah? Because the external situations are going to be the same. The only thing we need to do is change our mind, and that is what transforms all the situations into the path to enlightenment. Okay? So for example, one of my Dharma friends many years ago, she was doing retreat, you know, and she got a huge boil on her cheek, enormous, very painful boil. And she was walking around the monastery and our teacher saw her. And she's like, look at me, you know, kind of feel sorry for me, Rinpoche, you know. And Rinpoche looked at her and said, fantastic, you know, which of course is what she didn't want to hear. And he said, that's so good. You know, so much negative karma is ripening and being experienced. You're so fortunate to have that boil. Yeah? Now, if you hold on to your self-centered mind, then you think what he's saying is a bunch of BS. Okay? But if you really believe in karma, you know, and you see that when we experience suffering is because of our own negative actions, and that this action, that this experience, especially when you're in retreat, you know, or you're trying to study or something and you get an obstacle like this, that this is actually a horrible negative karma that is ripening in a very small suffering this life. And that karma could have ripened in a future life in a horrible suffering. But instead, it's ripening in this life as some kind of disease or illness or discomfort or whatever, which actually, in comparison to a horrible rebirth, is something that's quite manageable. Yeah? And I remember when you had cancer, you know, and Geshe-la told you, don't think of it as anything else but a blessing. Yeah? And you did that the whole time. And you really transformed the whole situation. Yeah? You did so well with that. Yeah? And that's really what we have to do, because obstacles and hindrances come our way all the time. You know? We don't even have to go look for them. They just come on their own. Yeah? But if we have this kind of teaching, then we can transform them. So that's why it's so precious. Yeah, really precious. Okay, so let's talk about these 5 degenerations, okay? Because in another version of the 7-point training of the mind, the line says, when the 5 degenerations flourish, transform them into the path to awakening. Okay? So don't just hear about how degenerate the world is and get depressed, but transform the whole situation into the path to enlightenment. Okay? So this is a big difference, because we're going to talk about the 5 degenerations, you know, and it talks about, we get the idea like, you know, everything is worse now than it ever has been. Actually, you know, we've always had all this 84,000 afflictions. Maybe we have more technology to be able to create havoc with them, but the afflictions are still there, okay? But all of this can be transformed into the path. So Buddhists, when we see, difficulty in the world, we don't say, oh, the world's ending, saved your canned food in your basement for when the world ends. Yeah. But we say, oh, there's problems in the world. How can I transform it into the path to enlightenment? Yeah? So very, very useful. Okay, so these 5 degenerations. First of all is the degeneration of the time. So what that means is that there's no lasting peace, there's a lot of warfare, there's famine, the material resources decrease. So this is what's happening. It's a degenerate time in that sense, okay? Second degeneration is the degeneration of sentient beings. So they have outrageous behavior, they're intolerant, bias and prejudice and, like that, holding wrong ethical views, and so they think that negative actions are constructive and constructive actions are negative. You can see this very well, can't you? They sabotage others' good works. Yeah. Stubborn, not wanting to listen to others' wise advice. It almost sounds like us, doesn't it? You mean we're part of the degenerate sentient beings? Me? I'm part of the degenerate sentient beings? Okay, but it's true, isn't it? Yeah, we're so stubborn. We don't want to listen to anybody who's trying to help us, who gives us good advice. We just say, go away, leave me alone. You don't love me. We're terrible to people sometimes, aren't we? Okay, third degeneration is degeneration of the view. So we have very distorted views. People don't believe that their actions have any kind of ethical dimension. That if they don't consider what their motivation is or the ethical degrees of their actions. They don't believe in rebirth. They follow wrong psychologies and wrong philosophies. We think that we can make up our own path to enlightenment. We believe that there's a real solid me, and then we psychologize all about me. We think killing is good. We have no interest in doing virtuous actions. So our views and our values are really screwed up. Okay? True or not true? Yeah? Okay. So it's not just pointing it at, Al-Qaeda, or the Bush administration. It's also pointing at our own mind. Okay, then the fourth degeneration is afflictions. So our disturbing emotions are very gross. We're obsessed with attachment. We're obsessed with anger and retaliation. Okay? And it's very rare to find people who are practicing properly. Even sometimes the spiritual practitioners aren't practicing very well. So because of, very, very gross afflictions. And you can see it. What's road rage about? Isn't road rage a pretty gross affliction? I mean, do you think when somebody cuts you off, do you think that person in the car said, oh, there's somebody driving in my blind spot. I think I'll cut them off and make them angry. Does anybody think that? No. But when we get angry when we're driving, then we have a negative motivation and want to cut them off. But the person who cut us off never does it deliberately. The person who changes lanes in front of us, I don't think they almost deliberately cause an accident. Do you? Yeah? Why do we get so mad at people when we've sometimes made the same mistakes? And especially road rage is so dangerous. I talked to one young man, I remember this so clearly, on one retreat I led. And he was driving in a car with his fiancée. And, you know, again, somebody cut him off, of course, not intentionally. But he got furious. And so he, like, was speeding up after the guy. And, you know, he wanted to retaliate to this guy who cut him off. And so he went and deliberately cut the other guy off. But in the process of doing so, lost control of his car, went over 3 lanes of the highway, and then hit one of the poles, you know, that stopped the car. Otherwise, he would have gone into the ditch. And, you know, he could have killed his fiancée, the person he loved the most, just because of his own ridiculous anger, because somebody had cut him off without any intention of harming him. But because of his own anger. How often does this happen? Yeah? So all too often, doesn't it? Doesn't it? So this is what's meant by gross afflictions. Yeah? So we need to be very careful. Yeah? Could you imagine living with that for the rest of your life? Yeah? If he had, like, you know, killed his fiancée? Okay, then the fifth affliction is the affliction of, or the fifth degeneration is the degeneration of lifespan, which means that there's there's increasing danger from sickness, accidents, and pollution, and that the duration of our natural lifespan without the aid of all sorts of medicine is decreasing. Okay, so those are 5, you know, rather inauspicious conditions: the time, the sentient beings, the view, the afflictions, and the lifespan. But that's the world we lived in. Why do we live in it? Because we created the karma to be born here. So now that we're born here as a result of our afflictions, we have the choice that either we can sit and feel sorry for ourselves and blame everybody else, or we could transform all these conditions into the path to enlightenment. So the choice is completely up to us. Yeah, nobody forces us to practice the Buddha Dharma. Buddha just offered the teachings. It's completely up to us. We can sit and bellyache. We can change our attitude. Yeah. So when when your mind is like really into its pity party and belly aching and blaming, sit there and just really put that to yourself. I can change my mind, or I can be miserable. Those are the 2 choices I have. Which one am I going to take? Yeah. But then our mind goes, yeah, I'll change my mind, But that guy still betrayed my trust, and he deserves to be punished for betraying my trust, doesn't he? And all my friends agree with me that he betrayed my trust, and I'm right and he's wrong, and I should punish him. And so because everybody else agrees with me, if I trash this person and do something mean to him, I am completely justified. In fact, I'm even being compassionate, because then he'll get a taste of his own medicine, and then he'll think twice before doing it again. We even have a philosophy to support our negative actions, don't we? Yeah? Are we really doing it out of compassion? With that tone of voice, are we doing anything out of compassion? Okay. When somebody else betrays our trust, we feel like we're the only person in the world whose trust has ever been betrayed, don't we? Nobody else has ever been hurt or betrayed like I've been. That's the way we feel. Isn't it? And I'm sure we could all tell many stories of all the people we trusted and all the horrible things they did to us. They talked behind our back. They were unfaithful. They told our secrets. They took our money. all sorts of things. We have so many stories. Okay? And then we use that as a reason to be angry and belligerent and blame and hurt people. And then what happens? We just continue the cycle, don't we? You know? We go and we do something and we get our vengeance against somebody else. And does that person, after we've gotten our revenge and we've really ruined their life, do they all of a sudden say, oh, you know, they did this to me because I harmed them and I need to go and apologize to them? Do they ever think that after we've harmed them in retaliation? No. Never. Yeah. So our mind that says, I'm going to retaliate and teach them a lesson, and then they'll see that they were wrong and they'll apologize. They never do. Okay. How often do we apologize to other people? As infrequently as possible. Yeah. Whatever we can do to not apologize. Of course, we'll do the kind of silly apologies, you know, kind of, yeah, where we aren't really sincere. But genuine apologies, not very often. Okay, and yet we're so upset when other people betray our trust. Yeah, do we? You know, I wonder who those people are who betray other people's trust. Because, you know, if I talk to you, you know, who betrays other people's trust? Other people. And you, who betrays other people? Every person on this planet that I ask, who betrays other people's trust? They're always going to tell me somebody else. But even the people they say betrayed their trust, when I ask that person, who betrays trust? They say somebody else. They don't say, I do. So who are all these people who betrayed other people's trust? It's always somebody else. It's never us, is it? We don't do terrible things like that. But I really wonder who it is then, who these people are who betray other people's trust. Because it's not anybody we ask, is it? Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah? You know, somebody comes up to you, are you trustworthy? Oh, yes, I'm very trustworthy. Have you ever betrayed anybody's trust? Oh, no, I would never do anything like that. I value my word. I'm very honest. I'm very compassionate. I would never betray anybody's trust. Yeah, you ask every single person and they answer like that. So who is it that's doing this betrayal of trust? Not me. Yeah. Isn't there some fairy tale like that where they always say, not me? Not me? I don't know, I can't remember. Can't remember my fairy tales very well. But we're always...
Not I said the fly?
Not I said the fly? What did the fly do?
I don't remember, but I remember that one.
Okay. But you know, where it's always somebody else. And yet, you know, we need to do a little bit of investigation, don't we? So instead of belly aching when other people betray our trust, we need to hold the mirror and look at our own conduct and see if we've ever betrayed anybody else's trust. That's much more uncomfortable, isn't it? But it's the only way to cure our own unhappiness. Because as long as we blame others, we're going to be miserable. Okay, let's continue on. If we enter the gateway of this practice, we will be able to transform unfavorable into favorable circumstances. This is the action of a wise person. This teaching provides the power to defeat all adversaries and overcome all obstacles on the path. Okay, when it's talking about defeating all adversaries, it doesn't mean external adversaries. It means the adversaries of our own jealousy, of our own arrogance, our own conceit, Yeah, our own greed. Those are the adversaries. If we travel in this way, the way of development and meditation, we can see our bodies as the blissful Pure Land. In other words, if we transform our mind, we create the environment of a bliss land, of a Pure Land. Because we start seeing everything as advantageous to our practice. And that's what Pure Land is, where everything around you is advantageous to your practice. Then unfavorable circumstances, whether internal, such as an unhappy mind or illness, or external, such as, what's going on in the world, then these unfavorable circumstances will neither cause misery nor upset the mind, but will be transformed into factors conducive to happiness. This is known as the undisturbed worldly realm, and even a great heap of fire-like afflictions, whether physical or mental, will not move or disturb the mind. This is called the city of the source of happiness, and is the point of attaining the single-pointed meditation capable of easily following all doctrines. A little practice at this time, when the 5 degenerations arise, and we are overwhelmed by both internal and external impediments, will be more swiftly effective than accumulating merits for eons in a Pure Land. Such is the special method for transforming bad times into good ones, an explanation of which follows here. Okay, so a little practice of these teachings, even if we're in a horrible circumstance, propels us along the path to enlightenment and to doing purification and accumulating merit much more quickly, and is much more effective than accumulating merits for eons in a Pure Land. Good deal, isn't it? Do you want to spend eons accumulating merit in a Pure Land? Or do you want to transform your mind now so that you give up anger and self-pity and all these kinds of things, so that we develop a little bit of courageous mind that can endure hardship and difficulties? Yeah, all we have to do is change our mind. These teachings are not difficult. It's not like you have to lift boulders, It's just changing the mind. Sometimes changing the mind is harder than lifting boulders. But if you think about lifting boulders, it's pretty hard. I'm going to go out and lift that boulder. Okay, easier to change the mind, isn't it? No, you're going to go lift boulders. Oh, good, okay. Next time we need the boulders, remember he volunteered. Okay, any questions right now? Okay. Well, I'll just continue. Oh, yes?
This is from last time, but we did some research on Sravasti and came to the conclusion that many people say his name is also Shantirakshita, and therefore he was the author of Wheel of Sharp Weapons.
Oh, okay.
Dharmakirti, sorry.
Yeah. Dhammarakshita. Okay, so you said that you did some research on Sir Lingpa, who was Atisha's teacher, and found that he was also called Dharmarakshita, who was the author of Wheel Sharp Weapons. Actually, that's incorrect. I think the other name was Dharmarata. It wasn't Dharmarakshita. And so Sir Lingpa is not the author of the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. It was an Indian guru of Atisha's who wrote the Wheel of Sharp Weapons.
Even Alex Burton's website says it is.
Oh, really? Well.
Yeah, okay.
If you look in the beginning of Peacock and a Poison Grove, Geshe Sopa's book, because they have an explanation there about Dhammarakshita. Some people say Dhammarakshita was a Vaibhasika. Yeah, but he was a Mahayana practitioner.
Were there times that were not labeled degenerated?
Were there times that were not labeled degenerate? There probably was. There's kind of a Buddhist legend or an old Indian legend about well, actually, even that, about the origin of the universe, this old Indian legend, even there, things were degenerating. Yeah. So,
This degeneration of lifespan, so in places that eventually the lifespan will reduce to 10 years.
Yeah.
And so if we're practicing this, will this be like protection from this?
Okay, so another one of the Buddhist kind of legends is that from our time is known as the time when the lifespan is 100 years, and eventually, because of people's negative actions, it'll decrease until 10 years. So she wants to know if this practice is a long life pill. So you want to live longer in the time of the 5 degenerations.
To practice Dharma and help others, sure.
Mm-hmm. The thing of the lifespan decreasing to 10 years isn't going to happen in our lifespan. Okay? Don't worry about that. I would worry more about creating negative karma that makes us have a shorter life. Okay? Anything else? Yeah?
Can you list the 5 again?
Oh, can I list the 5 again? Okay, the time, sentient beings, views, afflictions, and lifespan. Okay. Now, I don't, people kind of sometimes get all excited about over the 5 degenerations, because what does it spark in our mind? Oh, Armageddon, the Buddhist version of the apocalypse, and how can I make it through? And, that's, kind of don't get into that way of thinking, okay? Because the thing is that whether we live a long time or short time, it's due to our karma, and our karma is created by us, okay? We're the creators of it, so, if we do harmful actions, we create the cause for shorter lifespan, yeah? So even you live in a time when there's all sorts of medicine available in a long time, if you didn't create negative actions, then, later on in another rebirth, it leads to that kind of result. Mm-hmm. Okay, we just have a few minutes. So let me just read a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to start with the first of the 7 points, which says, first, train in the preliminaries. Our mind goes, preliminaries? I want to get to the high stuff. Okay, but the author says first train in the preliminaries. And if we sit and listen to the preliminaries, we'll realize that they're already challenging enough. Okay, so let me just read the first paragraph here. Okay, this involves contemplating the significance and rarity of life as a free and fortunate human being, contemplating impermanence and death, which leads to the realization that our lives can end at any time, and thinking about the causes and results of actions and the vicious nature of cyclic existence. Okay, so these are the 4 preliminaries. Understanding our precious human life. Second, death and impermanence. Third, actions or karma and their effects. And fourth, the defects or miseries of cyclic existence. So we're about to get into that topic. From these basic practices up to the training in the ultimate awakening mind, the practice can be divided into 2, the actual meditation session and the period between sessions. The actual session is also divided into 3, preparation, meditation, and it says behavior, but it means dedication. Okay? So, what this is talking about is that from these basic practices, these 4, of precious human life, death and impermanence, karma and its effects, and miseries of cyclic existence, from there all the way up to the wisdom that understands emptiness, okay, the ultimate, what's called the ultimate bodhicitta, okay, all those meditation sessions can be divided into two, or all that practice, I should say, can be divided into two: the formal meditation session and the break time. Okay? So our Dharma practice consists of both our formal meditation and our break time. Yeah, and this is very, very important, because if we get locked into thinking that practicing Dharma is only our formal meditation time, then as soon as we stand up from the cushion, our mind, we leave everything we gained behind. Yeah? If we think that, who needs formal meditation? I'll just practice Dharma in our daily life. In my daily life, again, our practice is going to be very limited, because we also need that quiet time to look inside more deeply and really spend that time understanding the Dharma. Okay, so we need those two phases of practice, formal meditation and the break time, and to practice through both of them. And within the actual formal meditation time, there's 3 stages. There's the preparation, the meditation, and the dedication.